Hey everyone, welcome to Cerwin Vegas, and today we're going to be comparing two of the last great speakers manufactured by Cerwin Vega. These are both three-way 10-inch models. We've got the E-710 and LS-10. So the specifications on these are identical when you look them up. They're both rated at 28 hertz to 20 kilohertz. They both have a 200 watt power rating, and both of these are rated at 8 ohms for normal impedance, and both of these have a 95 dB sensitivity rating. Visually, when you take a look at these two side by side, you notice some slight differences. We've got adjustments on the E-710 for your tweeter and your mid-range. You've got a grill, metal grill, covering your mid-range on the E-710. You don't on the LS-10. And you got an inverted dust cap on the E-710 and the normal domed one on the LS-10. The grills are slightly different as well, have a little bit of a different shape to it. The LS-10, the grills cover the entire speaker top to bottom, and the emblem is on the grill itself. And on the E-710, the grill comes down to about here, and the emblem for the speaker is at the bottom. Other than that, they're pretty much the same. When you look at these two, you can visually look at them, those tweeters are the same. Both 1-inch tweeters, 5-inch mid-range, and of course 10-inch woofers. Both 10-inch three-way speakers. When it comes to when these speakers came out, I believe the E-710 came out first, somewhere probably around 98. And I think it was 2000 when the LS-10 or the LS series came out. So the LS-10 would have been the last great speaker made by Cerwin Vega before everything got made in China. You know, if you look at the back of these speakers, they say made in the USA. You get any of the models past the LS series, it's going to say on the back, designed in the USA, made in China. So for these being at the end of the made in the USA Cerwin Vega speakers, they did, in my opinion, kind of start cheaping out in some spots. And some things I didn't realize. I'd never owned any of the E series before. When I went to pick them up, like I do like being able to adjust your mid and tweet with these, and a lot of the digital series and the AT series and all that, they have that those adjustments as well. So I was kind of pumped for that until I picked them up and realized that it's just like an on-off switch, not an on-off switch, but you have two settings, just lower, higher, that's all. It's not an actual dial. You can't actually tune them in like some other ones, right? You get to these AT12s where it's an actual dial. You can actually adjust everything in between. So I was a little disappointed in that, but after listening to them, I just turned them up. They sounded best to me when they're cranked up. So like I said, there's a grill covering the 5-inch mid on the E-710, and when you look right in there, it appears that the mid-range speakers are the same. Just no grill covering these. And then no adjustments on the LS-10, and kind of a cheap label on the front in my opinion. And if you look real close, I've seen a lot of them do this. I don't know if it's just they get heat or they warm up if they're sitting in the sun maybe, and you can see where this has started to sag. You can see where it was originally glued to. I've looked at a few of these models for sale, and they're pretty much all like that, for the most part anyways. A little different cabinet design, kind of rounded on the edge on the E-710s, and then these are squared up. It's actually the grills that are rounded on these guys. And then yes, you've got they're dirty. Should have cleaned those up first. Logo on the grill on these, and then this one, the grill doesn't go all the way to the bottom, and the logo just sits on the cabinet itself. In my opinion, these are a nice look. I kind of prefer the look, actually, of the LS-10 with the grills on and off, because I like the original dome style dust cap. And from the outside, like a lot of the other models, you can tell, die-cast aluminum frame, basket on both of them. And again, this one appears to be countersunk a little more than this. There's a little more of the basket showing here than on this one, but I've seen that before with the VS series has the woofers countersunk a bit, and the ATs just had them flush, or not flush mounted right to the face, and they actually stick right out. So you can see quite a bit of it. I kind of like that look. I like that nice aluminum look. Anyways, yeah, that's pretty much the only thing to go through on the front of these. Like I said, inverted dust cap on the E-710 and domed on the LS-10. So now taking a look at the back of both of these, the first thing I noticed that, and again, this kind of falls into the category of them starting to kind of cheap out, is these cabinets are made out of 5/8. I'm sure it's that same particle board or whatever you want to call it. Same wood grain, black vinyl, scratch resistant finish on it that they started using in, I don't know if it was the late 80s, somewhere in there when they started using this, but yeah, they got, it's not, the material cabinet isn't as thick as they used to use. Even though you might think it's because they're 10s, they didn't make they didn't use 3/4 inch for 10s. They did in the digital series and all the other ones. Even my D1s, which are a 2-way 8-inch model, even those are 3/4 inch. So they did start cheaping out a little bit. When it comes to weight comparison between the two, I couldn't find any specs on it. I don't have a scale in here, but just lifting them, moving them around, they're pretty much the same. Not much weight difference at all. Okay, looking at the back, E-710, and here you go, made in the USA. Your connections in the back are pretty much the same. These just have the caps on them. You can pull them out, and then banana plugs just pop right in there. So those are pretty much identical. Even the labels on the back, they're the same, just different model numbers. And then again, I don't know if you call it cheaping out or not, but I don't know. That's somebody, they designed them. It's not a very, any other Cerwin Vegas you look at, their ports are quite long. And that is going to change some of the effects of your low end response, and just plastic. And it's not even rounded on the back side. I mean, maybe if they were on the front, they would. I don't know how much port noise you're really going to get out of these. Yeah, like these. This is pretty cheap in my opinion, but not really any different than you see nowadays. The speakers. Oh, and you look at this. See the back, and now this is 3/4 inch. So it's funny that the sides aren't, or maybe they're. Well, you know what? It might all be 3/4 inch. I'm gonna have to scratch that earlier, because I think they just kind of have this. I don't know. We'll have to take a look. Anyways, yes. So the back of the cabinet is 3/4 inch, and it does look like they did have this glued, but it obviously didn't. Yeah, just kind of popped right out. So we're just gonna, for the time being, pop that back in. Good enough. Nope. Move this back out. And this one's glued in there pretty good, but still the same cheap plastic. I don't know. That pretty much does it for the back of it. They're pretty much identical. If I stand back here, you guys can't read the model numbers. You would think that those are the same speakers. There might be a slight difference. You know what? Let's grab this here. Height-wise, yeah, slightly different height. So the E-710s are a little bit taller, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because I don't think, oh, maybe that's why. These ones got some padding underneath. These ones don't, but I don't think that's, even with that, yeah, they're pretty identical. So that's pretty much the outside of the cabinets, front and back. Let's pull some of these drivers out, take a look inside, and then we'll go through some of the model numbers and see if the mids are the same, see if the tweeters are actually the same. Just because they look the same doesn't necessarily mean they are. We won't know until we actually pull them out. So if you watch some of my other videos and watch me pulling components out on a speaker, I usually use my impact. I only use it for pulling drivers out. I never use it to put the hardware back in. It doesn't take much with the cheap particle board that they use on these things to strip the holes. And then you just got more work to do and you gotta try to fix them. I like to use this in Allen key because then you can feel how tight they actually are instead of a little tougher with one of these. All right, now we got everything out of here. So, same typical baffling used in the inside as all the other models. Now after pulling them out, the woofer was countersunk in, like I figured. And they did use, this is actually 3/4 inch particle board they used for the face of the cabinet and the rear. But you know what? The sides, I think, is 5/8. So for some reason they went a little thinner material on the sides, but the face at least and the back is still the 3/4 inch. But yeah, that's the E-710 pulling out. I actually kind of like the design of or how they ran everything. I do like the newer Cerwin Vega wiring in the speakers. Generally, it's really hard to it'd be really hard to screw up and put everything possibly get the negatives and positives put together wrong, because they have the small terminal for the negatives and then the larger one for the positive, because some models where the tweeters, I think, was mostly are wired in reverse polarity, and if that was the case, well, these can only go back together one way. So yeah, here's the adjustments. Here you can see just switch activated. Little board on there with some resistors. Nothing too crazy. Yeah, so before we compare components against each other, I'm gonna go ahead and strip this one down. We'll kind of look at this cabinet, see if it's built any different. I'm guessing probably not, because this looks like the same 5/8 on the side. And I'm assuming 3/4 inch face and back, but I guess we'll find out. All right, now we got the LS-10 pulled apart. Same thing, pretty much identical. Even the cutout for the tweeter is the same, mid's the same. The woofer is not countersunk. See, this is what I mean by this stripping and whatnot. This stuff is pretty, just falls apart. Anyways, yes, 3/4 inch particle board for the front face. And honestly, it feels like, yeah, it might be 3/4 inch on the side too. It's really hard to tell. Either way, we know the front and the back is 3/4 inch. It might be on the same on the sides. But other than that, all the same. Cabinet design is really no different other than not having the mid-range and the tweeter adjustments on the front face. You can tell they were built around the same time, that's for sure. Well, let's get a look at these drivers. Well, now that we've pulled the woofers out of both of those Cerwin Vegas, starting to wonder about the dates that I had originally thought. I don't know when they made these up to. I don't know when they quit making these series. It's really hard to find some information on these guys. I don't know. But the woofer out of the E-710 is stamped, you guys can see that. Manufactured February 1st, 2002, and it is a 10W3 woofer. And the LS-10 is August 31st, 1999. And this is a 10W2. Now, when you go on to Cerwin Vega's website, onto their legacy page, and you look up, that's where they'll have, well, for most of their speakers, they have the information, like the newer ones. And they did have these, the serial numbers on the drivers. It did show that the E-710 was a, or was it this one? Well, I have to double check that now. No, it was for the LS. For the LS-10, they showed that it, yes, had a 10W2 model number for the woofer, and it said replacement was a 10W3. So, and this one's got a newer date on it than this one. So, honestly, maybe if you guys know, I don't know which one came first, the E-710 or the LS-10. It kind of tells me that the E-710, I want to think, came later, not just because it has a later manufacture date. That doesn't really have lots to do with it. It just means that's when these were manufactured. Doesn't mean these weren't made earlier as well. But because it said for a replacement for the LS-10, instead of a 10W2, it was a 10W3 for the replacement. So I'm thinking maybe the E-710s came first. But if you guys know, comment down below. I'd like to know. I don't like not knowing. Anyways, they're pretty much the same. Magnet size is the same. Looks like a 1.5-inch voice coil. You set these suckers side by side. They are the same. So I mean, I can't see why you, if you're looking for a replacement for either or, other than the dust cap looking a little different, I don't understand. No reason why you couldn't use one or the other. It even says it on their website. So I'm going to assume these are original foams because they are red all the way through. And a lot of the newer refoam kits you get, they are actually black on the inside, or gray. And these are, well, they're starting to get a little orange, but the red or pink, the newer ones are a little more pink. Yeah, these are probably original and still in good shape, so that's good to see. So those are the woofers. Set those aside. Now let's move upwards to the mid-range. So I like to see this. Anytime you get an enclosure and running an open basket style mid-range, and you see inside they even got it insulated. The earlier models actually used more of a cardboard type cup, I guess you could call it, to cover it, but same idea. It's just to separate and to stop the air pressure from the woofer interfering with the operation of the mid-range. So I like to see that they got that separated. That's nice. And these are, let's keep these together here. So this is it's a 4 ohm mid. It's a DM13080. Made in Philippines. Imagine that. Oh, foam out, or the baffling out. They had the hookups. It's kind of nice. You can actually pull them apart. I know the VS has the more cardboard style one. It just has the wires ran through a hole, and they just kind of put some silicone in there. Just makes it a little more of a pain in the butt when you're working on the things. But yeah, these are the same. And yes, same thing. 4 ohm, made in Philippines, and it's a DM13080. So these are the exact same mid-range drivers. So interchangeable, guys, just so you know, if you're ever looking for replacements. All right, back up the cabinet, we move to the tweeter. Now we know visually by looking at these things before we even took them out that these are probably going to be the same. And these are a 6 ohm, again, made in Philippines. It's a 6 ohm and is a DT1860 is the model number of this guy. The E-710. And then out of the LS-10, 6 ohm, made in the Philippines, DT1860. So the tweeters are 100% identical. All right, crossovers. Identical. If you look on the side here, it actually says E-710/LS-10. So these are exactly the same, which I mean, it would have made manufacturing a little cheap. Would have made manufacturing a little cheaper for them, just to kind of make them all the same. But I mean, yeah. So these are all made around the same time. It looks like it might be a bit of a pain in the butt if you're ever to recap these buggers, because man, they've got them. They got the soldering, the joints to solder in right in between these resistors, and they just got a lot of glue on them. I mean, it's not like you can't pull them out, it just makes it a little more difficult. For whatever reason, this has got this little capacitor here, this little ceramic one. They're just, I don't know, it's weird. One's mounted one way, one's mounted the other. But other than that, these are the same. There's not really much to compare with these two things, guys, because they are both going to work for both speakers. So once again, if you're ever looking for a replacement for either or will work. So what would a good comparison video be if we didn't put these two speakers head to head? Even though I think it's almost pointless. I don't think I'm even going to be able to hear a difference between the two. Box size is the same, port size is the same tweeters, same mid, same woofer pretty much. The only difference is I don't know about the switching on the E-710, but we're going to run this test with those cranked up to the highest setting, just because when I was listening to it before and when you turn it back, it's almost non-existent. I don't know if anybody would ever run them and on the lower setting, because to me it just didn't sound very good. Whether this is going to be a pointless test or not, and it's going to sound exactly the same, still got to do it. So for testing these two and putting these two head to head, I am going to use my ADCOM. So both of these are rated for 200 watts. This ADCOM has a modest rating of 200 watts per channel at 8 ohms. It does put out north of 200, but we're not going to be pushing them too hard by any means. That's the other thing too, and I didn't mention when I was taking this apart, guys, there's no protection on these. There's no overall fuse protection. There's no circuit breaker for the tweeter. So I don't know if I would use the same general rule that I usually use with Cerwin Vegas. Is I always say, oh, they can always take way more power than they're rated for. And it's true with a lot of the bigger models and a lot of the older ones. But I don't know about these. And because you don't have that insurance on your tweeters or overall, to say the least, I have seen quite a few come up for sale, and they've had generally they have a different mid-range put into them. So not having a ton of experience with these speakers, guys, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that mid-range might be the weakest link, or the tweeters. As far as the woofers go, it's the same old design as usual. But anyways, for this test, yes, gonna use my ADCOM, 200 watts per channel, and I've got this AVR 240 Harman Kardon home theater receiver that I've actually been using lately just as a preamp. It's got full 7.1 pre-outs on it, so I really like it for that. I can run a bunch of different amps, power amps off of it, and I actually really like the sound and the simplicity of it. It's pretty easy to adjust your tone. It just has your treble and bass. Also gives you can do your set large or small, but that doesn't really have much to do with what I'm using it for. But and then your level adjustments. But overall a good sound. So as I kind of expected, I couldn't really tell the difference between either or. The bass response was about the same. Even the tweeter and the mids, there wasn't a huge difference at all. So they sounded good though. I gotta say, for a 3-way 10-inch loudspeaker, I like them. It was nice, crisp highs. It was sounded good. I haven't listened to these for like long periods of times or really that much at all. This was kind of the first really good listen to that I had of these, and I've never had any of the other LS or E series Cerwin Vegas before. So I'm pleasantly surprised actually. If I see some of the bigger models come along, I'm probably going to jump on them because yeah, it's another great speaker put out by Cerwin Vega. Two of the last great made in the USA speakers. So I'm gonna give these thumbs up, and if you guys are considering buying these, I would say definitely do it. It's for what you could probably pick these up for used. I can't see anybody really being disappointed in them. But being on the smaller end scale of like for size, if you're just got a small room you put in them, or you're going to use them in your garage or something like that in a smaller room, they're still going to fill that room with lots of sound. 95 dB sensitivity. These will probably sound just great even with just your average run-of-the-mill 100-watt receiver or amplifier or whatnot. Really good. They sounded really good with that AdCom, but there's not a lot that doesn't. So yeah. So with that said, that's going to do it for this video. Remember, Cerwin Vegas. Big or small, save them all.